Hey, I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. Um, if you haven't heard, uh, Kevin Kimbo Slice Ferguson died on June 5th, 2016, at the age of 42 due to heart failure at a Florida hospital. I was always a big fan of the guy, and I would like to make this video as something of a tribute to him. So, where do you begin? The first time I was exposed to Kimbo Slice would be his fight against Tank Abbott. I remember it's an Elite XC. I once at a friend's house, and he wasn't a big MMA fan, but there was like all these ads. I forgot what we were watching for this fight, and so we watched it. February 2008, and yeah, he knocks out Tank Abbott. And ever since then, I've never missed a Kimbo Slice fight. I remember I think he removes his mouthpiece and throws it in the crowd. If I'm not mistaken. So, who's Kimbo Slice? What is his legacy? I mean, certain things you gotta know about Kimbo Slice. You know, um, he was a bodyguard, a family man. He drew multiple demographics. He was a ginormous ratings draw. He was a rags to riches story. He was unemployed, and then he took opportunities and just kind of ran with them. Um, and it's crazy. It's kind of crazy to think at 42 that he's gone. Um, when, in all fairness, I'm not going to say he's some great fighter. Like, let's just put that out there right now. Let's be perfectly honest. He wasn't like he's never gonna be known for his fighting or his fights per se. He was known as a character. He had the craziest beard. He apparently can make the greatest barbecue ever. Um, and if anything, and like I said, just being truthful here, he was more of an appeal to the freak show aspect of mixed martial arts than the sporting aspect. And you know what? That's perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine. And that's, in a sense, something of a legacy in itself. Looking through the timeline here, he fought James Thompson in Elite XC on May of 2008. Remember that fight? I remember that he got side mounted and he was getting hit, but I think it almost crucifixed. But I think it was Herb Dean wouldn't stop it. And then James Thompson came in with this crazy cauliflower ears. Think Leslie Smith, Jessica High. It explodes and the fight ends. I remember I worked at Blockbuster during that time, and some old guy, just some random old guy, some customer, some like senior citizen, just goes up to me and just I'm talking about the fight with someone, and he saw the fight too. Just goes to show he is drawing so many different demographics that you just don't know who they are. It's crazy, you know. He fought Seth Petrozelli in Elite XC on October of 2008. He lost that fight kind of embarrassingly. With more or less he rushes in and kind of gets jabbed, dropped, and ground and pounded, and it was done. Scala is in the background yelling. You know, this fight more or less puts Elite XC out of business because there was talk that there could have had some shady dealings, should I say, in regard to this fight. It was supposed to be Ken Shamrock versus Kimbo Slice. Seth Petrozelli took the fight on short notice and beat him. Seth Petrozelli would go on to fight in the UFC. Never actually won in the UFC. Well, he fought in the UFC before, coming out of Ultimate Fighter, and then after this fight, he managed to come back. Um, but he never actually won a fight in the UFC. Now I believe Seth Petrozelli is a trainer for WWE wrestlers, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but back to Kimbo Slice. 2009, he went on the Ultimate Fighter Season 10, heavyweight season. Besides Ultimate Fighter Brazil, I can't actually recall if there was another heavyweight season. Ends up fighting Roy Nelson this season, loses, gets crucifixed and pounded. They weren't hurtful shots, but it was enough to get the ref to call off the fight. Um, I guess this is a season where you really find out about Kimbo Slice, get to know the type of person he is. He's very self-reflective. Had a lot of good quotes. Um, know what I'm saying? Among others, inner me and the enemy. Um, and whatnot. Uh, they kept teasing Kimbo Slice. Is Kimbo Slice gonna return? Maybe fill in a spot or something. Eventually, he does get booked into the UFC to fight Houston Alexander on December of 2009. He's training with ATT during this time, and he introduces the Kimbo Blacks. He hits his really nice, like, suplex takedown on Houston Alexander, wins the fight, and there was the funniest picture here of him and Houston. It was Josh Rosenthal in the center. There's like a gif of this. He's in the center. Houston Alexander and Kimbo Slice are like to his sides, and they're like their hands are on their knees, and they are just panting for air. And then you see Rosenthal look at both of them, and he just kind of has this look of like, "Oh my god," like it was really funny. Um, but yeah, Kimbo Slice won a fight in the UFC against a relatively, a legit opponent, and this made me always think it's like, wow, if Kimbo Slice actually started this whole MMA thing sooner, he was not a bad athlete. He didn't have bad boxing per se for MMA. Didn't have bad head movement. He hits hard. He's tough. You know. Um, he could have maybe been something. I don't know if he'd be a world champion, but he could have been something. You know. As far as a fighter goes, because he was always something in the MMA community and in the MMA world in general. And that beard was something as well. He ends up fighting Matt Mitrione in the UFC on May of 2010. Loses that fight. I remember he got leg kicked bunch of times during that fight. Matt Mitrione turns out is pretty dang good. He's not exactly a top 10 UFC guy, but he's not a scrub either. He actually turned out to be a pretty decent fighter. Um, 5 years in between, he takes some boxing fights. You don't hear too much about him. It's a couple boxing fights here and there. Then he comes back in Bellator. Scott Coker owned, or run by Scott Coker this time. Fights in Bellator against Ken Shamrock, the guy who's supposed to fight in the Elite XC back in October 2008. This fight was kind of funny because Ken Shamrock couldn't lock in a rear naked choke correctly and subsequently gets knocked out. Like I said, kind of par for the course. You're never watching a Kimbo Slice fight for the fight itself. There's it's kind of funny. I'm like running down these fights, and it's like always something, like save for like the Mitrione fight or something else. Like it's always something. There's always something. Most of the time, it's comical. With within the fight itself. Um, and his final fight was against Dada 5000 in Bellator of February 2016. Some of the trash talk and some of the stuff before the fight was hilarious. I mean, he went to go. I think he went and challenged him to compare penis sizes, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. I mean, it was just. There's just one press conference. I mean, he's just like, "Shut up, Donna! Shut up, Donna!" And he's just, oh man, they're just going back and forth. The fight is downright comical. Um, the finish is actually. I remember my brother and I watching. I was laughing. It turns out it was actually a much more serious situation than it appeared, than even more than it appeared to be. As Data 5000 was like pretty much like his heart stopped or something like that during the fight. I mean, he just lost due to exhaustion. The fight would overall get overturned because Kimbo was taking something. But and then June 5th, 2016. Well, he was actually supposed to fight in Bellator 158. And went to tent poles uh, against Thompson, right? Yeah, I think it was a rematch against Thompson. That didn't happen. He dies at the age of 42 on June 5th, 2016. So, what is the legacy of Kimbo Slice? Um, like I said, it's not gonna be a guy that was some great fighter. You can hardly even call him like a what if story. If anything, a lot of what was him, as far as MMA goes more towards the freak show aspect and the more, yeah, just more like, I want to say circus like aspect of MMA. And that's fine. Like I said, it's not to disparage him. I watched all those fights. I looked forward to every one of those fights that happened that I just named. Um, and I know a lot of other people did too, because his ratings were enormous. Um, you know, maybe in MMA, just in MMA, I can't really speak for his personal life or anything like that. I never met the guy. Uh, Maybe one legacy of his is that, in a sense, like him being a part of that side of the sport, more the entertainment side of the sport, it's essentially what MMA is in a sense, and what MMA came from pro wrestling. If you watch Pride, they have a lot of pageantry and whatnot, along with the great fights. They had the freak show aspect of it. It's always there. And with Kimbo, I mean, it's always there, but it's almost needs to be there in a sense. I know some people disagree and they want to just see the sporting aspect, but the fact of the matter is, it's still there. Even having Brock Lesnar come back in like UFC 200, yeah, he's a legit fighter, but you know, him versus Hunt, is it like, oh, I want to see a great matchup, or is it like, oh, this guy's gonna get big ratings? Oh, it's Brock Lesnar. It's not even like the fight itself that's tuning people in. It's Brock Lesnar. It's a character. It's a personality. And that's the same with Kimbo Slice. There's the character. Here's the personality. Here's the beard. Here's the you know here's the one-liners, whatnot, and whatnot. It's Like we're not so far away from like that the entertainment aspect of the sport. I mean, it's going a little more towards a little like sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't going more towards the sporting aspect. But Kimbo Slice, you know, when his fights are announced, it always just goes back to that entertainment aspect. Like, what are we watching MMA for? We're watching it for sports, but a lot of us are we're watching it just to be entertained. You know, I think Kimbo Slice kind of brought that, in a sense. And I'm not trying to be disparaging here. Like, it's the truth. You can't like talk about Kimbo Slice and MMA and not talk about like you know what he was there for. He wasn't fighting Bellator in these main event spots or cone main event spots for like because he's fighting for a title or having these like great competitive fights. I mean that's the reality of the situation with Kimbo Slice. Like I said, that's fine. That's who he is. Um, yeah, he definitely personified just personality in MMA. That's for sure. It's just like I mean, you're watching the Slice fight to watch Kimbo Slice. Not necessarily to watch a good fight or anything like that. Just and pretty much all his fights weren't very good on a technical aspect. Heck, even on an entertainment aspect, sometimes. I mean, the fact that he'd gas like hard. It's the fact that a lot of his fights were like downright comical. Um, but it's kind of par for the course of Kimbo Slice. This is what he brought to MMA. He brought more eyeballs to at least to his fights. I don't know about to MMA itself. I don't know if any of those guys watching Kimbo Slice's fights were actually converted into MMA fans. But yeah, we're not. I guess we're not that far removed from the days of old. We're not so far removed from pro wrestling, and I know a lot of people say it right now. That um, in some ways the UFC can very much be like pro wrestling. Um, I think Kimbo Slice is like, I guess to be philosophical, like a reminder of like where we came from, and as much as who we want to be, which is like this legit sport and whatnot, he's like the guy that kept us like. I'm just being like real philosophical right now, and you can totally disagree with this, but it's just kind of like he's just the guy that kind of made us realize like who what we are, entertainment, and in a sense where we came from. Maybe that in MMA's point, maybe that could be his legacy. I mean, honestly, a lot of people have talked about this though. There's a lot more to him. I'm just talking more strictly MMA than anything else. So, some of his lines that he said in The Ultimate Fighter Season 10 that I'd like to mention. My whole life I was fighting the enemy, but I realized I was really fighting the inner me. My inner me is my worst enemy. Now, you know, knowing who it came from, it's like, it's from Kimbo Slice. It's really hard to sometimes take him seriously. But the fact of the matter is, this is like true words of wisdom, you know? My enemy is my worst enemy, I'm an author. Okay, if I don't want to write, and I say, I'm too tired. Oh, I don't feel like it. Oh, it's too hard. Well, you know, is it the outside factors that's stopping me from writing? No, my inner me is my worst enemy. I'm stopping myself. I practice Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, you know? Um, you get up against a better guy. You learn some new moves. but instead of trying stuff on him, you just want to survive. You end up probably getting your guard pass and probably tapped anyways, and you're just surviving. You're not even trying to do anything on this guy, you know. And you say, "Oh well, he's too good. I don't want to get tapped. I don't want to get my guard pass. I don't want this." Well, the fact that you don't want to try is because my inner me is my worst enemy. You know, something actually stopping you from trying something. You know, your inner me doesn't want to fail. That's what it is. So you neglect to even try anything new to try and get out of the situation that you're in. So I mean that I get you can even apply that to life. You know, it's just my enemy is my worst enemy. So yeah, that's it for this edition of MMA for You. And this is the Kimbo Slice tribute. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And that's pretty much it for MMA for You. Thank you guys very much. And RIP, rest in peace, Kevin Kimbo Slice Ferguson. Thank you guys very much.